Thanks everybody for joining me back here at Oval Windows operating room. Yeah, we had a mishap here. I actually sat back with Simon, and yeah, you can see he's back, spread out back on the operating table, and we are performing open brain surgery again. Well, if you've been following along, last video you see me go and grab this throttle body here, and the whole idea with the throttle body was to try to figure out if the IAC valve, I call it IAC valve, but it's an idle air control valve, was good. Well, in the middle of testing everything on Simon, I actually had his ECU back in the car, and I was trying to figure this valve out, and it acted kind of funny at first, and then I started, working and getting some movement out of it, but then something happened, and I don't know, it just quit working. So in the process of emailing back and forth and diagnosing it, and I got to give a big thank you to Matt. I'm probably driving the guy nuts over at DIY Auto Tunes for helping me out and determining that we actually had to send the daughter board back in. The daughter board is part of the ECU here. The daughter board I sent back in was for the MS3, and I got the MS2 daughter board back in here while they were trying to figure out what was wrong on that end. I wanted to make sure that everything was hinky-dorky here with my ECU, because I just sent the daughter board back, and I didn't know it at the time of the purchase, but the daughter board does come with a 1-year warranty, and as far as I know, whatever happened to the daughter board was covered under the 1-year warranty. I've only had it for a couple of months and haven't even started the car with it. I was just doing some testing with it. But what I'm hoping to show you guys here is where the IAC valve is located, and kind of show you how it works. I'm going to link a video down below for William Jones. He's got a video on the IAC valve here, and he's got a great demonstration, and he actually describes it much better than I'm going to. So if I confuse you enough, please be sure to get over to see William's video. Now William's ECU, I believe, I'm sure I'm pronouncing this right, it's a Speedino, and I'm running a Mega Squirt. But the nice thing about the Speedino and the Mega Squirt is they're both in DIY ECU, and both these platforms both run with Tuner Studio, so it was kind of informative on how he was able to show the Tuner Studio and where everything was located and where the settings were. Now I don't know if it's his version of Tuner Studio or if it's they actually have a different version for the Speedino, but some of the settings were labeled different, or I didn't have them at all. And I think I do have another question I got to send over to Matt. I just got to remember what the question was, but it was something with one of the settings I couldn't get to actually enable, so I could change it at all. Maybe I don't need to. Like I said, I'm still learning all this, and now that I understand a little bit more on how the settings work, I'm going to try to show you guys. So sit tight. Alright guys, like I said, we got the operating table out here, and I'm going to show you what I've got here. This is my MS2 with the GM stem, and what this allows me to do is bench test the computer. So it gives you your power source, and you can complete different tests with this. And I bought this GM stem when I first bought the kit for the MS2. It comes in handy. About the only thing I really did is you have to test for power certain different points on the computer when you're assembling, to make sure that everything's assembled properly. That's about all I kind of use it for. I think I showed you guys in a previous video when I had it hooked up. I don't remember what I was testing. It was boost controller, I think I was setting it. I might have talked about it. But you can purchase this assembled, and that's what I did. Or you can purchase it in a kit and assemble it yourself if you got time. Yeah, you can see I've got a nest of wires coming off of it, and they are running over to my throttle body. So yeah, I'm actually using this for a testing like it's supposed to. So I am glad I purchased it. It is nice to have. Most of the time it just sits in a box, but when you do need it, it's there. But yeah, I'm going to show you guys how this moves. What we're going to be looking at is the valve, and it's inside here. What we got here is the throttle plate, and you can see the throttle plate's closed, and that's basically where the throttle plate is when most of your cars, when you start them up. And back in the old day, you would actually set them open a little bit to obtain your idle. But that's what this valve is down here, is the idle air control valve. Hence the name. I don't know why, you know, they just don't call it a fast idle valve, because basically that's what it does. You start your car up, and when it's cold, it brings the idle up until it warms up, and then it brings it back down to where it's supposed to be. But yeah, we're going to watch this valve in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to key on the ECU, but I'm not going to key it on with the key because it's not in the car. I'm going to hit this little switch here, and we'll see it move. There. And what that did, valve went to the home position, which is the closed position, and then came back open to wherever your software is set for the temperature. And I'll kind of try to show you that here in a second. But yeah, I just kind of think that's kind of neat. It makes that little buzzing noise, and from what I understand, that's okay. What it's doing is going down there, and it's coming to a stop, but it's still kind of moving a little bit, and there's a little clutch in there, and I guess it does slip a little bit, and then it comes back out. And that's just telling the ECU where it's at, because when you shut it off, you know, it doesn't remember where it was at. I don't really know on how they perform on the GM vehicles, but that's how this is set up for this. Now I got to get Tuner Studio opened up. All right, to explain that valve a little bit more, why that's opening and closing is it's actually opening up an air passageway around the throttle plate. There's a hole on the other side of the throttle body that opens up, and this just allows the right amount of air to come in and out according to how you have your programmer tuned. And that's the part that I'm going to be working on earlier this spring when we get Simon out of the basement. But yeah, I should probably point out that we are looking at the back side of the throttle body. This is where the gasket would be, where it mounts on the car. And like I said, that's the valve throttle body. And we have over here is Tuner Studio. And we will come back here, key him on again, and we'll watch him fire up here. Yep, I got blinking lights. Hey, there it goes. It's alive. We're going to go over here to start up an idle. Open up the idle cranking duty. We don't need crank. I'm just going to go to the warm up one. There's two settings on here. One is for when it's cranking, and there's certain settings you got to have in there, whether the car is hot or cold, because it still kind of has to open and close. And then there's basically the warm-up cycle, or where it's running, and you know, when the temperature's going down, but on the graph, when it goes down, that means it's getting hotter, so the temperature's coming up. You know, what I've been doing throughout the years here, since I didn't have the idle air control valve hooked up, I just kind of did the old-fashioned way and cranked open my throttle plate a little bit, and then on cold startups I would have to sit there and open and find a sweet spot with the throttle and warm the car up that way. It's just a little bit of a hassle because you're stuck in the seat until the car is kind of warmed up to where it'll idle on its own, and then you can't run around the car like when you first, you know, got the engine back in it, and you know, all the fuel lines hooked back up and the oil lines. You can't run around and make sure there's no oil or fuel dripping all over the place until the car's warmed up, otherwise it stalls. But the other thing I'm thinking I'm having a problem with is every time you hit that throttle, if you're passing the threshold, and the threshold is wherever the throttle is at, there's a setting in Tuner Studio there for your threshold, and that tells the computer to throw more fuel at the car every time you throw down the accelerator, kind of like a carburetor, you'd be activating the accelerator pump, but they don't call it accelerator pump on here. We're going to come over here, and I'm going to show you right now. It's telling me must be a little off. It's saying it's 40 degrees down here, but I think it's closer to 60. But that might be where I've got my coolant temperature set on. Yeah, I probably have my coolant temperature set at 40 on here. But basically, yeah, that little circled on the screen there, that's basically telling where your temperature's set at, and then how many steps the valve is turned out. So I'm going to actually go and change that number, show you guys what happens. I'm going to set you down here. I'm going to change that number I did earlier to something big, just so you notice the change. Did you see the valve move? Now it's really wide open. Now I set it at 400, and here's where you kind of got to know what's going on here. One of the settings that's really important, like I said, is the steps to home. Like I said, everything's a step, or counted in steps, but the step to home, I think, is basically defaulted at 250. Well, now that I just opened it up to 400, if I go and key off and key on, that valve is not going to go all the way closed. It's going to go almost halfway closed because it's set for 250. So it's only 250 steps. Well, I got to open 400 steps. So that's one setting, and it says it in here, that you have to have larger than your other setting. So that's one setting you have to have larger than your warm-up setting. Otherwise, your valve's not going to know where home's at. You know, it's going to go down to home, and it's not going to be all the way closed. And you want to make sure that closes all the way. And I'll set that back, and we'll watch it move again. Basically, I got pretty much the default settings in here. Okay. Now, there we go. It looks like it went down to 120. Let's turn it, key it off, key it back on, and see if it homes. Just barely went eek. Yeah, that's the kind of the ins and outs of this, or at least what I understand on this valve. And the other cranking duty. So that starts out at, like I said, the coolant is at 30 degrees, and hot is 175. But they don't, you know, this one apparently doesn't fine tune like the warm up one, because there's only it's like four settings in here, and they actually got the 175 at 102, and William, I think he said he sets his at about 30. I've got another friend, he's running the same throttle body on his Carmagia, and again, I'm going to try to get back a hold of him. He was supposed to send me his settings. I want to kind of put them close, because we're pretty close on what we're running for CCs, engine-wise, the throttle body, everything's pretty close, and this should be a good starter point for me, and then I can fine-tune it from there. Okay, one other thing I want to show you quickly before I leave here is kind of how this valve here works. Like I said, this is a idle air control valve, and I thought that this plunger was on like a shaft that would just go in and out, but no, it's actually threaded, and that's kind of what was wrong with this one here. It was just kind of sticky. There was some gunk in there, and the thread, and the motor wasn't strong enough to push it forward and backwards. But yeah, it's just on a threaded, like a big screw with a spring here, and I guess they get gummed up once in a while. It's a good idea to kind of clean them, but you know, I don't think I would want to be spraying too much in there. And I actually think, I haven't took the other one apart, but it does look like there's a big crack on here, so I'm not going to use this. Like I said, I wound up sourcing another one from the salvage yard, and maybe after I get it all up and running, I'll wind up buying a brand new one. But this one that I got in the throttle body right now seems to work really well. Or at least it's behaving. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. I hope this was somewhat informative for you guys. If you have questions, please leave them down below. If you like the video, hit the like button, and yeah, be sure to stay tuned and come back, because we're going to find out what's inside this big box. So until next time, keep shifting those gears. We'll see ya.